You've got, 80 plus million microinverters. You're serving a global customer base, 5 million homes, etc. Like that is different from B2B software. That's your shop window. Like if that's not working, your shop is not working.
Anytime something doesn't work, it's very well known to everybody in the companies.
How the hell do you stay calm in that environment?
I wouldn't call it easy by any means. Let me pull out 2 or 3 things, right?
Ravi Thadani, good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you, Yousuf. How about you?
I'm good. I know you've got very busy days as global head of IT for Enphase Energy. I know you've got no shortage of SAP and ERP and security and data and infrastructure issues to deal with. And out of all of that, you have graced me with some time. And I appreciate that very, very much. So
Thank you for inviting me as well, Yousuf.
I would like to start just a little bit, just by talking a little bit about your current role when you took over and a little bit about the company, because maybe not people have heard enough about it, but it's very clear that the work and the product that Enphase does, it impacts millions of people. So I would love to just hear a little bit more about the company first, and then talk about your role in that company.
We have global operations and global presence, not only for our employees being globally present, but also our customers being globally present. We have around 2,800 employees, and our homeowners are our primary customers. And what the homeowners use is they use our microinverters primarily to generate electricity from solar generation, for the solar generation. The second product we have is the battery, which allows you to store it. So when the sun is down, you can store the battery, store the power, store the solar energy in the battery and consume it at night or store it for some other day. The third product we have is we make EV chargers, and all of this integrates together through our Enphase app that allows you to not just monitor, but also adjust, if you want to, let's say, charge your car in the middle of the day, right? So patterns like that you can set up so that you can maximize the use of clean energy. Right. We have around 5 million systems or 5 million homeowners worldwide. And each of our devices, we have around close to 85 million devices that every homeowner has multiple panels, multiple inverters, maybe battery, EV chargers, etc. So we have around 84 million microinverters, or close to 85 million microinverters that generates around 30 gigawatt hours. Wow. Of power. And our presence is there in 160 countries, and our battery systems produce around a little over 2 gigawatt hours. As of the end of 2024, which was the last financial year that we reported, we were 1.3 billion in revenue and around little over 100 million in GAAP net income.
When did you join Enphase? Let's talk a little bit about that. And yeah, would love to talk a little bit about your role and sort of team as well.
So I joined Enphase in April of 24, so getting close to 2 years. And my role is primarily, I'm heading up IT, so all of the functions of IT are under me. And the exciting things that I've liked being here is obviously I'm sure every CIO in this world is got AI as a top priority, and I'm no different. Yeah. And it's not about having AI as a top priority; it's about how you move it forward. And there are constraints, there are challenges, but that's what makes it exciting.
So clearly that's on the agenda. Before we go into that, it'd be good to get some color on the industry's transition that you've basically made, because you clearly, I mean, at the very least, microinverters, microchips, like you're of course in the kind of embedded technology approach that needs to and is critical when it comes to sort of functioning of sort of critical devices. So that seems to be a pretty consistent theme. Probably you didn't realize that, but that seems to be this theme. But can you just talk a little bit about kind of the role of IT as you think about the fact that you've got 80 plus million microinverters, you're serving a global customer base, 5 million homes, etc. Like that is different from B2B software, which of
Yeah.
course I've operated in for a very, very long time. So would just like to just get a perspective there of like, what does that engine that you have to manage and be part of look like?
Prior to Enphase, I spent, I don't know, 27, 25 plus years in semiconductor, right? And the difference in semiconductor is your semiconductor, your product goes on a device, a laptop,
Right.
router, whatever the case may be. When your customers have a problem or a challenge or a design, they're working with the OEM, let's say HP,
Right.
Cisco, the likes of those, right? Unlike here, we are connected directly to the consumer, the homeowner. Of course, we go through our distribution channels
Sure.
to supply the product, but ultimately the homeowner is connected into our Enphase app, which is
Yeah.
whereby they can monitor, and the device is generating a lot of data, right?
You have a more direct connection to your customer simply
Correct.
by the premise of the fact that you have this app and the fact that they're generating all this data. Now,
Yeah.
so look,
Yeah.
let's shift gears a little bit about talking about the CIO role. I think the key thing that you mentioned is, being a good business partner means that you are close to the customer experience and being able to make sure that that's in case. So, but as you and I have talked about in the past, the role has changed a lot in the few years, right? I think it's really shaping out sort of business outcomes. You mentioned AI. We've got to talk about AI because it's overwhelming in every conversation that's possible, and people are going to ask the question. So let's start from the top down. How have you thought about, and you've been in the industry, if you were, and still in some of the semiconductor companies that you were at, you would still be looking to apply AI to deliver some operational efficiency or to be able to transform some of your infrastructure or otherwise. How have you, now that we've had 3 years post ChatGPT, no shortage of billions of dollars being invested in every part of this industry, data centers to semiconductors to widely used, wide use cases from robotics right down to enterprise software. If you think about the CIO driving AI going forward, what are some of the challenges that they're going to find, or what's your perspective in terms of how you going about doing it? Let's assume you had no budget and resource issues. So,
I actually prefer not to start with budget and resources ever, right?
okay,
Let's look at the idea and then figure out, right? And put the constraints in around. If you start with the constraint, you'll never go anywhere.
yeah,
It's AI is, in my mind, is a collective. It's a collective culmination of many changes that have happened over the past 25 years. You had the .com, and you had things that stayed, things that failed. Then you had mobile, then you had cloud, and now you have AI. So if you think about it, right, this is now you're dealing with a much bigger stack. And right now, in my mind, we are more in the AI infrastructure phase. We are building the infrastructure, even though it's been 3 years. Yes, there have been some applications, but I think that application landscape will get a little more streamlined over a longer period of time. Infrastructure and capacity and all of that is what we're dealing with now. We
Right.
don't need 6 months evaluation cycles.
Got it.
In 6 months, there are 2 more products that you're dealing with.
There's no more. So I think the velocity there is just the velocity of change that's happening,
Yeah.
and the new products that are coming in a lot faster. So you don't have time for evaluation. Okay,
Yeah.
so evaluation time has to be shortened. Check. Next.
Yeah. Second thing is you have to have a concept where whatever the technology is not, the technology or the product that you're putting in is not that critical. It's what are you going to achieve, the outcomes that you're going to achieve with AI. That's more important.
Yes.
Whether you use Copilot or ChatGPT, it's irrelevant. Those are replaceable. Then you can rip and replace. It's not that difficult as long as you don't take 6 months. That's important. So that's the second thing. The third thing that I would say is that the one product will not fit everybody's need. There may be personal preferences, which always is, whenever you're evaluating different things, but you have to think about the fact that certain workflows or certain category of people will want a certain product versus another one, and it's okay for 2 products to coexist.
Right.
So that's kind of where I feel it's very different, right? Unlike what you went in the past, right? If you had, like, a multi-cloud is a much bigger thing than having, let's say, 2 coding assistants.
So, for example, are there particular, let's assume you're with all of our CIO friends, you have the ability to autonomously resolve or be able to deploy AI in one or two corporate functions that you think, what would those one or two be for you as a CIO potentially?
I'm being a little more broad and generic. So one
Go for
is
it.
product development. It's software coding, right? That's
Yeah,
100%.
code
I think there's a
generation.
lot of
That
code
amazing. Yeah,
generation. There's a huge benefit, and there's a very significant benefit that I think we are not even seen yet because it's not being published, and
yep,
many
yep,
companies
yep.
won't publish it, right? But they're taking actions on it. The second thing I think is all of the SG&A functions.
Yep.
All of the SG&A functions can benefit from it. I mean, quite often I catch myself, okay, I'm going to download this file, I'm going to do this, I'm going to massage it. This can do it for me in very quickly and very
Yeah,
accurately.
yeah.
So
Sure.
why am I going through this whole process or generating a document into a slide?
Yeah,
It can give you the skill. So there are just and again I'm calling GNA tasks to be
sure.
very generic, like finance,
Yeah.
legal,
I,
HR.
I mean, is it?
There's a
It's fair to say
lot.
the analysis level in some of these functions
Yeah,
can be cumbersome, very very manual, very very repetitive,
yeah.
and it's fair to say, without disrespect to people's careers, like a lot of that should be accelerated and can be done with AI. Is that fair?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
I think so.
And then you can even think about marketing content, right? So
Yeah,
if you look at all of that, right, lead generation, right? AI has the power in so many different functions. AI is not replacing you. It's people using AI that will replace you,
right,
right?
right.
So that's so the thing is that the adoption has to be there, and it makes your life easier. It makes you more efficient. You can do things faster. So if you look at code generation, can I use the code generator to now complete my projects in 6 months instead of 12 months?
Yeah, we're
Right. So
seeing
it's not that I need less people. I can do things faster. I can do faster time to market and stuff like that.
I've had multiple conversations with CIOs, and the topic of AI and engineering always comes up. Just as I've had conversations with Ravi as he's talked about the priority of embedding AI in engineering operations. This episode is brought to you by Blitzy, the enterprise autonomous software development platform with infinite code context. Visit blitzy.com and press book demo to learn how Blitzy transforms your SDLC from AI assisted to AI native. Let's talk a little bit about, so we've covered a couple of areas already. We're getting a little bit deeper now, but part of this is about, driving change as a CIO. Lots of CIOs who listen to this, some IT leaders who are sort of thinking about this. They ask me the common question, how did you get things done? I tend to basically make sure that this question is asked to anybody who's on the pod. Question really comes down to is like, how do you, in your viewpoint, help drive a change in the mindset of the team? How are you able to, what have you found works with stakeholders? It definitively, yes, it's a great time to be in technology, but I would love to kind of hear your perspective of like, having had experience in working with a lot of executive teams, what advice do you give to CIOs who want to be able to drive change? And what advice would you give to upcoming potential IT leaders about how they think about being able to make an impact?
First thing is anything that IT does as a transformation or a change, it's a business project.
Yeah.
It's not an IT project.
Yeah.
And most transformations fail for that reason. If it's an IT project, it's bound to fail, right? So it has to be treated as a business project. Even if you're redesigning something like your network,
Yeah.
right, the backbone, it is a business project. You're not creating the network bandwidth for fun. It is for a business reason. So
Yep.
one is having an executive sponsor. You have to start there. An executive sponsor doesn't have to be the CEO. It could be anybody who's sponsoring. It could be your boss. Whoever has that breadth of influence.
Yeah.
That's more critical.
Yep.
The second thing is you need to have the right stakeholders. And in stakeholders is not necessarily only by title. Stakeholders is one influence in the organization. I'm not making a joke of this, but the people who are going to be the biggest complainers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they and it's not, I'm not trying to be, try to demean them
No,
by any
I
means.
get it.
Yeah. It is that they will bring out things that you will never think of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
No
that's
question.
the great part. So I think driving change is important, and you have to convince people. You
Yeah.
have to convince people sometimes with data. You have to convince people, the technical team with architecture, what's in it for them. there has to be that whole thing built in. And
Yeah.
that's how I think CIOs can drive things. And pretty much every place I've been, that's how it works. And your own credibility, don't exclude your own credibility.
Yeah.
If you don't build your own credibility, that's going to be the first thing you do.
Totally, totally, totally. So we've covered leadership, we've covered AI. Let's talk about what's underneath some of this stuff. And some of the, of course, the area that I'm focusing very heavily on. You and I have had plenty of group therapy sessions about the craziness in data in each of our respective companies, and we've heard that from other CIOs. I'm trying to solve in a particular way. Is it fair to say that a lot of companies are not ready for AI until they get some of their data in order, whether it's structured or unstructured, for example? Where does this play the biggest part for you? And does it therefore lead into you deciding what is a good strategic initiative when it comes to AI, when you think about the data underlying it?
Like I call it the foundation data, right? And I think this goes back. This is outside of AI.
Sure.
This is for everything. Analytics. You want to
Yeah.
do integration of data between two systems. It's all this principle applies there. So your foundational data has to be very, very strong, right? So let's assume you want to do something with your product portfolio. If you don't have a very good product master that is defined accurately, everything is very clear, and that quite often companies, and in my past I've seen new product lines come in, they kind of try to squeeze it in, and the foundational data then suddenly becomes bad, and then you spend a lot of time data cleansing.
Right.
Data cleansing is not a value add, right? I think it's instead of doing data cleansing 10 times, fix the
Yeah.
problem once.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, we all run into this, pressure of time to market, so many people available, etc. So yes, we do run into that, but we don't go and clean the data foundation, but we clean the data. So I
Right.
think that focus is one thing that,
And if I may just stay on that point, what have you seen done work? Have you seen data governance teams be effective? Have you seen dedicated data teams be able to drive this work? Is it a CIO initiative? Is it an enterprise-wide initiative? Or is it just reactive? What have you seen work well?
data foundation is actually very emotional.
Right.
I've
Yes, it is
actually
very emotional. Yeah.
it's very emotional. So what I've seen work is there is one owner for every data, any data. So telling that one owner that I'm going to now have governance over your data is not going to necessarily help. But
Right.
what you need again to help the data owner understand that I have got 10 stakeholders and they are using this data in different ways.
Yep.
Let's take product data, right?
Yeah.
Product data starts from concept, right? And goes through design, engineering, sales and marketing, manufacturing, supply chain,
Right.
and ultimately end of life,
Yep.
right? So you have to design your product data with that in mind, the start end to end. You cannot just look at sales and marketing. So now I put so many stakeholders in the mix. Is the data owner talking to all the stakeholders, or everybody's creating their own islands? And in
Yeah.
larger companies, it's a higher likelihood where people are creating islands of data.
Yeah. No
Right.
question. No question.
So it becomes a CIO initiative as a result of it becoming so far spread into the enterprise.
Yeah, totally. Totally get that. Totally get that. And then by the way, it's useful for you to say that, you have to have strong foundational data structure. But then leads into my next question. All of this, whether it comes down to CRM or data warehouse, when you think about AI initiatives, ultimately none of this is going to work if you have the right sort of architecture at scale. If you want to think about this. And I think in the nature of your business, I think it's the full set, right? You've got the mobile app, you've got telemetry coming in from the actual devices themselves. Then you're embedded within those particular systems. Therefore, you're able to have metric-driven customer experience. You can actually see what's basically being generated from a power and what you're serving a customer. And then, you're going to grow as a company. You're going from, several countries, 2,500 plus employees, et cetera, $1 billion revenue. So how do you think about how companies architect? Is this you need to revisit things? Is it your strategy to iterate over time? Is this we'll just bring in a consultancy and let them basically have this? Do you have a specific function? How should CIOs and companies think about architecture as they think about transforming in the time ahead?
It depends on the stage of the company. Your architecture has to have certain concepts, right? Scalability being the number one. Certain companies which are now ready for growth, or if you're a CIO of the company, you have to think about that all the time, right? The companies tend to have a scalability thing, 10x, 2x, 5x, 100x, whatever the case may be at any point. So what does that, how do you translate that into IT, and therefore how do you translate that into architecture? So
Right.
that in my mind is the number one thing that you have to plan for. And even if you don't plan for it, you have to have a consideration while you're defining your initial architecture that yes, when this will scale to 5x, but over 5x, I have to now rethink. So there's a point in time that I have to go back to the drawing board, and that's okay. I want an iterative approach, but I want it to be a conscious approach. It's not something that, on the fly you decide. And some things can be on the fly, but I do think that iterative approach is the best, because if you wait for everything, all the stars to align, you never lift off.
Yeah, no, I
Right,
totally get
so-
that. I totally get that. Well, look, I mean, there's a partnership that some CIOs do well, which is with the CISO. There's some CIOs who don't partner well in that direction. There's no shortage of tension. There's no shortage of competing priorities, competing budgets. How have you done that? How has that worked well? How can this partnership be successful?
There is, in my mind, there is a balance of security and productivity. Like you have to look at both angles. You have to understand the basic foundations of all the security requirements for the company. Now, every company has a different security focus or security posture, so you have to understand that posture, and everything that you design has to be part of that. The reason why I think things get into a security kind of back and forth is when you've not designed it with that in mind. You know the posture, but you've not designed that in mind. That is the number one thing that I think of, including in AI. You have to consider security, and some things in AI are more risk. So you
Yeah.
have to probably include security more than that. The other thing that I think the success that I've seen that happens is you're not considering security as an afterthought.
Right. So it's embedded within your thinking, within your operation, you security first. Yeah. Okay.
You can have it initially as an approval. You can, so before, when you do a design, it wasn't something that I had done, but in one of the other CIOs I had spoken to, they said in IT, whenever they start any project, they get all the functions together and they say, this is what we're doing. And everybody has a chance to raise their hand and tell them that I have an impact or I don't have an impact. And that's so you decide that upfront before starting anything, before embarking on any initiative, you do that.
Right.
It may take an extra hour or two to do that, but I think it's very important, because then you consider that along the way.
Right. Got it.
And I know when AI came, one of the things that I heard from a security team is, don't use ChatGPT.
Right.
Don't put private confidential information, which is still the case, right? Because then people got more comfortable with RAG and all. They understood what it meant, and I think things have evolved quite a bit since the initial days.
Can I sway the conversation a little bit just in terms of your depth of experience? Because I think a lot of people work in the software space. I'm not saying that the companies you don't work with have been software, but there is a hardware component to it, and I think that's there's deep software. There's just it's a different dynamic in terms of what the customer experience is and what you're producing, and then you've got supply chain and all the other things that sort of come to that. As a CIO in a hardware industry, what are some of those more specific things that you have to deal with differently than somebody who is in a non-hardware space? And does that change your strategy in certain areas, or do you spend more time in one versus in one particular part of function than others compared to? I just would love the perspective on that.
With hardware, you have different design tools. Your design tools are very different.
Right.
So now that's always managed, in my experience, always managed by the engineering team. So, but still, there's some interaction with the IT side, enabling it, all of that. The infrastructure that you provide, the network, all of that, because all of these tools are very expensive, and they can, any slowness can be very costly. They've started moving towards the cloud, but they're not yet there.
Right.
And so that's been a slower adoption.
Right.
The second thing about hardware is the entire manufacturing and supply chain.
Right.
That's very different. If you think about manufacturing automation, supply chain supply chains are always, you always have a supplier, and you're the consumer. You have a whole ecosystem you're dealing
Yeah.
with. And the way you think about it differently is that you're part of that ecosystem, or they are
Yeah.
part of your ecosystem. So even though you don't manage them, you don't manage your supply chain partners,
Yeah.
whatever they do is impacting you. If they have a security incident, you potentially could be impacted, right? Or
Yeah.
vice versa. So
Yeah.
I think it's very important for the IT teams to be connected. It's not just a business collaboration that happens there, especially if you're connecting anything. If you're
Yeah.
connecting into each other through some B2B method.
Something related to that you basically said, which I think is important to ask because of the companies you've worked for. The scale at which, AMD and Altera, like, could you just give, our listeners just a little bit of an insight, like, you know, X thousand employees, maybe the factories you visited, or just, like, was there a couple of things that happened that you realized, like, whoa, this is a different scale? Any incident or just a story that you could share, which kind of demonstrates the scale of kind of the operation? Because when we were starting this, and you said, "Oh well, we're 5 million," you said it in such a like, please pass the salt, and we serve 5 million households. I was like, oh my god, you're in 5 millions of households. Like, so I'm just trying to get to grips with like how you deal with the scale, because I think a lot of CIOs struggle with that. I just don't think they scale with the company, which is why sometimes they have to be moved on. But just would love to just get some insights from you about how you view scale of companies and how you manage at scale.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of my Altera days, right? So Altera, close to little over 3,000 employees. It had a software. So I'll give you the both difference between the hardware and the software, right? The hardware that an FPGA manufactures does nothing without the software. So you need the software to make the hardware work the way you want, right? It's a programmable hardware. Just to give you the magnitude of some numbers I remember. So my hardware compute farm, right, where we were building the hardware, testing it, doing all of the simulations and everything, was 1,500 servers.
Wow. Okay.
Worldwide. And this, I needed all kinds of flavors of Linux. All of this, it had to work on everything. And think about the data retention, think about the backups and all of that. So it was fairly complex, right? And then everything runs on top of it now. So that was one magnitude of how much the hardware is. And I cannot let the hardware run. I cannot let it run on old hardware. I have to replace every 3 years or whatever the life cycle is.
Totally.
The software development, the software that was built, it was not, the executable was not of 100 gigabytes.
Right.
It's a huge piece of software. So that means that if a customer comes to download the software after they've signed up the license key and everything, we need to make sure that they are, if there's an interruption, all of that, right? So we had to work with some partners to make sure that the customers can run it. And even if a field service agent needed to look at the download it, that office needed to have enough bandwidth to download that level of software. There's a very different mindset when it comes to hardware development.
Yeah.
It's very, very different, and this is just, I'm talking about what I have, what
Right.
IT was managing. There are the machines that are used, the semiconductor manufacturing gear. That's even much bigger than the stuff I managed.
Right. Fantastic. Let me file a few questions. My understanding is you're also a scholar. Is that fair? You also teach.
That doesn't make me a scholar, but I teach.
It makes you're far more scholar than me and anybody else. So yeah, could you share some insight in terms of what you've been doing here?
I'm part of a CIO scholarship fund. We actually provide scholarship to the CSU system.
Right.
So I'm part of San Jose State, which is part of the CSU system,
Amazing.
and we've been doing this for over 10 years. Right.
Amazing.
So as part of that, somebody said, "Hey, why don't you guys come and teach? We would like to get some industry experience." So a few of us signed up for it. We're still there, all of us. And yeah, it has been very interesting. So I teach IT for business students.
Amazing.
Right? So the thing is that, and one question most of them get wrong is, what is IT? I said, it's IT is technology and what? And they'll say information and something else. And I said, no, it's business. So it's all
Right.
about business. And then I
Right.
explained to them why a business person like an HR or a sales or marketing, why is their knowledge and their experience going to, and if you combine that with technology, how it can result, and they end up having a much better appreciation of technology as well as they go into the workforce. So
Amazing.
so yeah, it's done as part of giving back, but it's now I'm enjoying it. It's part of my personality, it's part of my DNA. So yeah,
Fantastic. That's
that's me
great.
now.
Thank you for doing that. Well, so maybe one piece of knowledge you can impart. What is a secret you wish more executives knew, that maybe more CIOs knew, that after all of your depth of experience that you've had, that you want to be able to share?
I'll say two things about. I'll say three things, right?
Go for it.
One is shadow IT.
Basically, your answers will scale. She just went from 1 to 3. That's the way to
Okay,
do that,
yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Don't fight shadow IT. Shadow IT
Okay.
is there in every company, and
Yep.
fighting it is not going to help. Collaborating and moving towards doing the right thing for the company is important. Try to understand why it exists. Like, I've had people tell me, hey, the shadow IT exists, you should bring them into IT. Sure, and then what we'll do? And nobody has an answer. It cannot be an empire building exercise. It
Yep.
needs to be done for the right reasons. And there is a reason for it, and there's a right time for addressing that. But don't start with that.
Right.
The second thing is, technology doesn't decide to fail itself.
Right.
And there is somebody who did not communicate something, a developer did not file the right change ticket, or something happened that caused something to fail.
Right.
Or somebody misinterpreted business, you misunderstood the requirements. So it's all about communication. So that needs to be very, very clear. And I learned this from a CIO I worked for who came from marketing. We would tell him, we are going live with this. And he
Right.
would say, what do I do with this? I don't even understand what to do with this. Because it was all technical, right? We have put, if you put, so, that kind of helped me, have an appreciation about how important communication is, and
Yeah.
why things can go wrong if that's not happening.
Right.
The third piece is, the largest barrier to anything is people and culture,
Right.
right? You cannot ignore that piece. You cannot just bulldoze and say, I'm going to just go through it and do it. You have to adapt whatever you're doing to the culture and the people.
Right.
So I'll end with that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, let's ask you last couple of questions.
Okay.
What we term as the lightning round.
Okay.
Lightning round requires you not to overthink the answer, and to be able to present your immediate thought that sort of comes to
Okay.
mind. Okay, so it'll just give you two choices, and you basically decide whether this is worthy of you. Now, it's not very
Okay.
controversial. Could be depending on where you're going to be. But let's go with this basically. Okay. So are you ready? Are you ready for this? Yeah. Okay. All right. Deep breath, because you're gonna need to go through it. Okay. Question 1: ChatGPT or Claude?
Claude.
Okay. LLMs or M&Ms?
LLMs.
Okay. Nobody chases M&Ms. I don't understand. That's very good. Okay. Reader or writer?
Writer.
Okay. Driver or be driven?
Driver.
Okay. I'll just ask you, Uber or Lyft? Now, we know the CIOs are both
Lyft.
companies. Okay, all right. Well, that's because, I'll make sure we speak to the CIO accordingly. Okay, fair enough. Well, listen, first of all, Ravi, thanks for making time for us. Thanks for all of the insights. Super insightful for a bunch of folks listening, definitely for myself as well, as I sort of think about this. And, congratulations again, both on a phenomenal career to date, and also for the challenge ahead in beating technology at this company. It's clearly being done at a scale, but as you've clearly indicated, you got this, and so super
Thank you.
excited for you, and of course, I'm really sure that everyone was going to be benefit by hearing your insights. So thank you again.
Thanks, Yousuf. Thanks for inviting me.
Appreciate
And good luck in your new endeavor as well.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much. Thanks for listening to CIO Classified. This episode was brought to you by Blitzy. Want to accelerate software development by 500%? Meet Blitzy, the only autonomous code generation platform with with infinite code context, purpose-built for large, complex, enterprise-scale codebase. While other AI coding tools provide snippets of code and struggle with context, Glitzy ingests millions of lines of code and orchestrates thousands of agents that reason for hours to map every line-level dependency. With a complete contextual understanding of your codebase, Glitzy is ready to be deployed at the beginning of every sprint. Glitzy handles the heavy lifting, delivering over 80% of the work autonomously. The platform plans, builds, and validates premium quality code at the speed of compute, turning months of engineering into a matter of days. It's a secret weapon for Fortune 500 companies globally. To hear how engineering leaders are transforming the way they deliver software, visit glitzy.com. That's blitzy.com. Schedule a meeting with their consultants to enable an AI-native SDLC in your organization today.